Maria's corner was a small, dusty spot on the edge of her quiet Midwestern town, a crossroads where a lonely bus stop and an old oak tree marked the landscape. For Maria, a 34-year-old mother with eyes that carried both dreams and weariness, it had become her stage. Every evening, just as the sun began to dip behind the horizon, she would sit beneath that oak tree with her son, Danny, in her lap. Her guitar, weathered and scratched from years of use, rested against her legs as if it were an extension of her soul. Maria's voice, soft yet full of yearning, would drift into the evening air like the scent of wildflowers, carrying with it the weight of stories untold. Danny was just 6 years old, his tiny frame fragile from the illness that had taken over his young body. The doctors had given Maria an impossible number when she asked how much it would cost to treat him, a number she could never hope to reach working double shifts at the diner or picking up odd jobs around town. But Maria had something else. She had her music and an unshakable belief that love could move mountains. She had started singing there 3 months ago, partly for tips and partly because it was the only place Danny seemed to truly relax. The music seemed to soothe his aches, and his soft, sleepy smile was all the encouragement Maria needed. Her songs weren't just melodies. They were prayers, whispers to the universe for a miracle she desperately needed. That evening, as the chill of autumn settled in, Maria's fingers moved over the guitar strings, weaving a tune that told of hope and heartbreak. A small crowd gathered, as it often did, their faces illuminated by the fading sunlight. Some stayed for her voice. Others stayed for the story they could see etched into her every note. A young couple held hands, their eyes misty as they listened. An older man leaned against the bus stop sign, nodding along to the rhythm. And then, just as she began a song she had written for Danny, the hum of an approaching car broke through the music. It was a Cadillac, gleaming and out of place in the humble surroundings. Maria's fingers faltered for just a moment as the car slowed, then came to a stop a few feet away. The driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out, his figure silhouetted against the headlights. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit that seemed at odds with the dusty road beneath his polished shoes. Maria's heart raced. People rarely stopped their cars for her songs. They either drove by with a honk or ignored her completely. The man's expression was unreadable as he approached, his hands tucked into his pockets. He stopped a few feet away and listened, his head tilting slightly as if he were trying to catch every nuance of her voice. Maria's voice wavered, but Danny's tiny hand on her arm steadied her. She took a deep breath and continued, pouring everything she had into the song. It was a lullaby, one she had written during a sleepless night at Danny's bedside, her fears and hopes woven into the lyrics. When she finished, the small crowd clapped softly, their applause mingling with the rustling leaves. The man stepped closer. His face was kind, but his eyes were sharp, as if he could see right through her. "That was beautiful," he said, his voice smooth but warm. "What's your name?" "Maria," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "And the little one?" "Danny," she said, her arms tightening protectively around her son. The man crouched slightly, his gaze softening as he looked at Danny. "Hey there, Danny. You've got a pretty amazing mom." Danny gave a shy smile, his fingers clutching Maria's shirt. The man stood and reached into his pocket, pulling out a business card. "I'm Ethan." He handed the card to Maria. "I'm a talent scout for a music label. You've got a gift, Maria, and I'd like to help you share it with the world." Maria stared at the card, the words blurring as tears filled her eyes. I don't understand," she stammered. Ethan smiled. "I'm offering you a chance to record some songs. We can start small, see where it goes. I'll be honest, it's not an overnight fix, but it's a step. You have a story, Maria, and the world needs to hear it." Maria's mind raced. It felt too good to be true, like a dream she didn't dare to dream. "I don't have the money for anything like that," she said, her voice tinged with regret. Ethan's smile didn't waver. "Don't worry about that. Let's just see where this can go. Call me when you're ready." He gave her a small nod and turned to leave, but then paused. "And Maria, don't stop singing. You never know who's listening." As the Cadillac disappeared into the distance, Maria clutched the card like it was a lifeline. The crowd slowly dispersed, but a woman lingered, her face glowing with encouragement. "You should do it," she said softly. "You have something special." That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She sat by Danny's bedside, the card resting on the table next to her. Her mind was a whirlwind of doubt and hope. What if it was a scam? What if she failed? But what if, just what if, this was the answer to her prayers? The next morning, she made the call. Ethan's voice was as warm as she remembered, and he arranged for her to visit his studio the following week. The days leading up to the meeting were a blur of nerves and anticipation. Maria practiced every spare moment she had, her fingers aching from hours spent strumming the guitar. Danny, though tired, seemed to share her excitement, his tiny voice humming along to her songs. When the day finally arrived, Maria's heart pounded as she stepped into the sleek, modern studio. Ethan greeted her with a reassuring smile and introduced her to a small team. They worked with her patiently, helping her find her voice in this unfamiliar environment. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. Over the next few weeks, Maria recorded several songs, each one a piece of her soul. The studio sessions were grueling, but she poured everything into them, driven by the thought of giving Danny a future. Ethan kept his word, guiding her every step of the way. Soon, her songs were ready for release, and Maria's life began to change in ways she could never have imagined. Maria's songs were like little sparks lighting up the darkness that had surrounded her life. Ethan had told her that the songs would be shared on online platforms, but she never imagined how quickly people would notice. Within a few weeks, her music started gaining traction. People from all over the country left comments about how her voice touched their hearts, how her lyrics seemed to echo their own struggles and hopes. One day, as she sat by the window with Danny on her lap, she got a call from Ethan. "Maria, you won't believe this," he said, his voice almost giddy. "Your song, Danny's Lullaby, is trending. People can't get enough of it." Maria's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Danny, who was half asleep, his tiny hand clutching hers. "What does that mean?" she asked cautiously. "It means," Ethan replied, "people are listening. They're sharing your story. And it means we're getting offers, real offers, to take your music further. I'll explain more when you come in tomorrow." The next day, Maria walked into the studio, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. Ethan greeted her with a huge smile and handed her a stack of printed emails. "These are from people who want to help," he said. "Sponsors, donors, even a few big names in the music industry. They're all moved by your story. And Maria, there's something else." He paused, then handed her another piece of paper. It was a letter from a local charity that specialized in helping children with serious illnesses. They had heard her song and wanted to contribute to Danny's medical care. The letter explained that they could cover a significant portion of his treatment costs. Maria's hands shook as she read the words. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked at Ethan. "Is this real?" she whispered. "It's real," Ethan said gently. "Your voice did this, Maria. Your love for Danny did this." That evening, Maria went back to her corner by the oak tree. For the first time, her song wasn't just a prayer. It was a thank you. A few regulars stopped to listen, and when she finished, an older woman approached her with a smile. "I've been listening to you for months," the woman said. "Your music is a blessing. And now, it's blessing others too." Maria thanked her, her heart full of gratitude. She couldn't believe how far she had come in just a few months. From singing on a dusty street corner to seeing real hope for Danny's future, it all felt like a dream. But the journey wasn't over yet. As Ethan had explained, there were still challenges ahead. The music industry was unpredictable, and while the offers were exciting, Maria needed to make careful decisions. Ethan promised to guide her, but she knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Over the next few months, Maria balanced her new opportunities with her responsibilities as a mother. She spent countless hours in the studio, working on new songs while making sure Danny always came first. Her music began to reach even more people, and soon she was invited to perform at a small concert in the city. The concert was a turning point. Maria stood on stage, her guitar in her hands, her heart pounding as she faced the crowd. She could barely believe that so many people had come to hear her. Taking a deep breath, she began to play. The melody filled the room, and her voice carried the story of a mother's love and a child's courage. When she finished, the audience erupted into applause. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she saw the impact her music had made. After the show, people lined up to thank her, to share their own stories of hope and struggle. Among them was a woman who introduced herself as a nurse from a prestigious children's hospital. She told Maria that she had connections with specialists who might be able to help Danny even more. "Your story is inspiring," the nurse said. "Let me see what I can do." Days turned into weeks, and Maria's world continued to change. Danny began receiving better care, and his health slowly improved. Maria's music career blossomed, but she never forgot why she started singing in the first place. Every note she played, every lyric she wrote, was for Danny. One evening, as Maria and Danny sat together under the oak tree, she strummed her guitar softly. Danny, now a little stronger and full of life, looked up at her with a smile. "Sing the lullaby, Mama," he said. Maria smiled back, her heart swelling with love. She began to sing, her voice carrying the same hope and determination that had brought them this far. And as the sun set, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink, Maria realized that this was her true success. Not the fame, not the recognition, but the simple joy of seeing her son smile. Her journey wasn't just about music. It was about love, resilience, and the power of a mother's unwavering belief. And as long as she had her voice, Maria knew she would never stop singing.